Welcome, adventurers and fellow world builders. My name is Yadro, and this is Yadro Gaming. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite parts of building out the start of a campaign, and that's creating a campaign hook. So it helps if you know your players a little bit and you know that what they're looking for in a campaign, but if not, you can pitch them a couple ideas about things that you would like to run and see if any of them strike the most interest among the players that you have at your table. If you've been following along with the channel, the last video I posted was about sending out a survey to your players to find out what kind of campaign they'd like to play in. I'm going to take you through how I just built a campaign hook for my new group that I'm playing with, based on the answers from those surveys to build a campaign hook that really grabbed all of their attention. So I started off my campaign hook by saying, think about the Wild West, but less cowboys and Indians, and more about establishing small settlements spread across a vast region. The settlements have a reason for their consolidation at that spot. Each will have an abundance or a reason why people chose to settle there. This abundance is probably their trade good. Each will also have two scarcities, or the downside of settling in that area. These scarcities are going to cause the settlements to rely on one another. We'll be establishing these abundances, scarcities, relations, lore, and connections during the quiet year for each of your home settlements. So right off the bat, I've kind of set the tone about what kind of campaign I'm going to be looking to run. If you think back to the questionnaire that I sent out to my players, you might remember I asked them, what are the greatest threats on this continent? And when I stacked them all up, I thought some of the lower threat options that they chose were gangs and guilds, beasts of the wild, and the possibility of a war. Now this kind of got my mind working on sort of an untamed wilderness sort of area, especially with some of the other questions we asked later. So I kind of put that up front so that they would kind of be able to orient themselves on where we're going to be going from here. I know we haven't talked about the quiet year in depth yet, but I'm going to do a video based on it as we get closer to running the quiet year for my players. Each party member is newly self-employed as someone who escorts carts of trade goods from their home settlement bound for another settlement. Oftentimes, the same escorts do not follow the entire route. Instead, they escort shipments to a centralized location referred to as the crossroads. Once they safely deliver their goods to their contacts in the crossroads, another individual or group escorts the goods to their final settlement. This act is often referred to as tagging in, and the individuals doing these escort trips are colloquially known as tag-ins. So you'll see based on that paragraph, I've already given them a purpose for being in the crossroads and a purpose for them to already be working together. Though they're most likely going to be coming from separate settlements, I'm going to be putting them in the same place at the same time where I can give them some kind of an inciting event to get them going in the same direction as a party. Going back to the survey, this is how I'm going to be implementing that gang or guild that the party wants to deal with. Additionally, when they're traveling between settlements, this is when they're going to be encountering some dangerous beasts that are out there. Whenever there's trade involved, there's some settlements that have a surplus of goods and some have scarcities that they need goods, there's always a possibility of conflict there or war erupting of any kind of nature. That's where my players are going to get involved to see who ends up on top. All the players are coming from different settlements on the map, so they're going to have their own interests at heart, and they're going to learn about the inner workings of this trade route, of the guild or gang, and of the other settlements, and who exactly are the good guys and the bad guys. So I came up with an interesting little name just that they can call themselves, called the Taggins, which I think is just kind of interesting when they'll meet these other Taggins that are also escorting goods. It should be an opportunity for me to give a lot of new NPCs that they can interact with, as well as this crossroads town that's going to cater a lot to them, like these gold rush towns that popped up, or like Alaskan towns in the wilderness where people decided to just kind of settle down and help the other traders that came through. So I think it's going to offer kind of a home base for them to always return to, get to know people, and just have a little bit of fun kind of in the downtime, or even accepting quests that pop up from these NPCs that they get to know. I envision the crossroads as a bit of a hedonistic zone and a rough and tumble, as it's mostly inhabited by Taggins that live hard and play hard. The businesses cater to their customers to keep them happy and satiated in more ways than one. The trade routes, but ultimately the Taggins, are the reason these businesses can be successful, and this little trading post is bustling with life. There is a respect and understanding that you don't mess with the cargo and you don't put the escort job at risk. In general, if you get into a fight at the bar with another Taggin, you very well might be working with that same Taggin on the next trip, and you're expected to perform so everyone gets paid and lives. So here I'm giving them a little bit of what I expect the crossroads to be, and give them an opportunity to kind of wrap their heads about what they're going to be walking into at the start of the campaign. So I'm setting up their own expectations, but as well as mine, about what they're going to be doing at this central location, so it's a safe zone for the rest of the campaign. So you'll also see that when they're in this crossroads, there's some rules and expectations of them. Now that works at a functional level for the crossroads, but it also helps me establish some boundaries, rules, and limits that they're going to obey while they're there. If this is going to be a home base that we're returning to throughout the campaign, they need to have an understanding of they can't do something stupid or wild here that's going to endanger the rest of their safety and livelihood. Now they can, there's nothing stopping them from doing so, but if they want to have this great resource at their disposal, then they need to behave themselves a little bit. The 6 of you will have just finished your first escorts to the crossroads from your respective settlement. There's some coin jangling in your pockets as you step into the crossroads for the first time. You will all either end up agreeing to accept an available escort gig to a settlement, or between gigs, you'll do some exploration of the crossroads or the surrounding area, as there's a lot that needs done. So here I'm kind of establishing where they're going to be starting the campaign, and I've already given them some direction, as that was recommended to me during the survey that I sent out, that they wanted a little bit of rails to get them started before they start making decisions for themselves. So the way that I envision this first session going is that they're all going to be arriving in town. They'll be dropping off the trade goods that they just came with from their settlement. They're going to have their payment, and then they're going to get a chance to meet each other and meet one of the bosses of the trade routes. So they are going to have a little bit of spending money, so they're going to want to check out the shops and prepare for their next trip. They're going to have the option of either setting out immediately for another settlement or trying to find some quests to do around town just to get their feet under them and maybe gain a level or two before they head back out onto the dangerous roads. Another thing I'm kind of thinking about for the start of this campaign is to, before we even get into the crossroads itself, I'm going to have each of the players roll a d20, and the lowest roll of that is going to have the hardest time on their journey to the crossroads. So they're going to have kind of a horror story coming in about what happened to the troop that they were traveling with. I think that'll give them an interesting opportunity to role play a little bit about what they saw on the road. On the other side, whoever rolled the highest is going to have a pretty easy trip to the crossroads. They're going to think it was a breeze, they don't know what the big deal is, and they're going to be maybe a little bit naive to what's going on out there outside of the safety of the settlements. I think that will also give a great opportunity for role play, as we will automatically have a couple people on opposite sides of that. I even think that if someone rolls a natural 1 or a natural 20 on that roll, that they're going to have an extreme on that, where there may be a little bit of extra change in their pocket if they scored the natural 20, and if they scored a 1, they might come to town beaten and bruised and having lost a shipment altogether, which will instantly throw in a little monkey wrench into their plans on another job. Heading back to the survey that I sent out to them, you can see where I'm hitting on a couple of these things. Sort of a standard medieval fantasy, which it seems like we're checking in the boxes there. They want a home base that they can return to somewhat often, and they wanted a larger sort of map to explore and head out into and get a little bit lost in. Now, the other things that they had of themes that they wanted to hit in the campaign based on that survey, it's going to be up to them to introduce in the quiet year, which I'm really excited to see how they weave in. When recruiting players to join your game, sending out a campaign adventure hook is a great way to let them know what kind of game they're going to be getting into and what you're interested in running. If that's intimidating, just coming up with ideas on your own, sending out a survey like I did and how I demonstrated in the last video is a great way to let them kind of build that campaign for you, so then you can adapt your playstyle to match what the players would like and what they would expect. I'd love to hear in the comments how you've hooked your players or how you've been hooked as a player into a campaign. What was the greatest adventure hook or campaign hook that you ever heard? If you want more tips and tricks like this to get your players involved and interested in your campaign, feel free to like and subscribe and follow along with the channel. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, why be a player when you can be a god?